Welcome back to the Not Alone podcast, where we explore stories that unite, inform, and empower. So today we're going to try something different. I want to expand the mission of this podcast to hopefully maybe try a few new things. And the goal is sharing more about the history and some of the context of transgender individuals. As you can tell, we've been on hiatus for a while. We stopped because my day job required some more of my time and because honestly, I didn't know if I was making a difference. Since then, I have received multiple stories about how we have actually helped people discover more about who they are and who their loved ones are. It led to more acceptance, and honestly, it was very nice. For that, I want to thank every single one of our guests who have enabled this journey. I want to continue this journey now, and that's why we're going to continue sharing stories and maybe getting into sharing some of the rich history to show that while your journey is unique, you are not alone. Jumping back to the podcast today. The Trump administration has recently initiated a full frontal assault on the transgender community by pushing back against gender-affirming care and dividing the LGBT community and the T community, amongst other things. So, as a level-setting conversation, I thought we'd start by journeying through the rich and complex history of transgender individuals, highlighting global perspectives and significant developments from the 1990s to today, including the impact of the Trump administration and beyond. This is simply a high-level overview, and I hope to, over time, dig in deeper. So let's start from the beginning, ancient and global perspective. So, transgender identities are deeply rooted in history, from Neolithic artifacts depicting dual-gendered figures to the androgynous Scythian Ennerai priests. Gender diversity has long existed. Transgender identities are deeply rooted in history. You start with Neolithic artifacts, you'll see dual-gendered figures. When you go to the Scythian Ennerai priests, you'll notice that they are androgynous and gender diversity has long existed. In South Asia, the hijra community holds cultural significance and often serve as spiritual figures and caregivers. Indigenous North American tribes have long honored two-spirited individuals, and they recognize their vital roles in community and spirituality. Ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia also documented people who defied binary gender roles. Between the 1600s and the 1990s in the US, you also saw a lot of changes. In the US, Thomas or Thomasine Hall, an indentured servant in 1629, challenged colonial gender norms by living openly as both male and female. In the 18th century, the genderless preacher, known as the public universal friend, gained a devoted following. Progress comes in spurts, and the 20th century saw its own milestones. Francis Thomas testified on racial and gender-based violence in 1866. Christine Jorgensen's 1952 transition brought visibility and pivotal events like the Compton Cafeteria Riot and the Stonewall Riots, igniting the LGBTQ movement. Trans icons like Marsha Johnson and Sylvia Rivera became catalysts for change. The 1990s marked political and cultural progress. Althea Garrison became the first openly transgender person elected to a U.S. legislature. Minnesota passed trans-inclusive anti-discrimination laws. In 1988, in 1998, the Transgender Day of Remembrance was created. It honored victims of anti-trans violence. Then came the 2000s. The trans pride flag debuted. Thomas Beatty challenged norms as a pregnant transgender man. And I remember this because I remember seeing the Time magazine cover. And that was very interesting and very attention-grabbing, quite honestly. Then you had the APA's DSM-5. It updated and reduced stigma by redefining gender dysphoria. Celebrities like Laverne Cox and Caitlyn Jenner expanded mainstream awareness. Then came the 2010s. There were major legal victories, notably Bostock and Clayton County, which protected transgender employees under federal law. However, since then, we've had some setbacks. The Trump administration most recently banned transgender military service members and rolled back healthcare protections and sought to limit federal recognition of transgender identities. I find this kind of fascinating because, from what I understand, President Trump is actually friends with Caitlyn Jenner. So I don't fully understand why he would push back. Despite this, federal courts have themselves blocked many discriminatory policies, and activists secure protections at state levels. Debates over gender-affirming care, sports participation, and anti-discrimination laws continue, and this illustrates the ongoing struggle for rights and recognition. I hope we arrive to a more settled place in society. Now, let's be clear. After several years of progressive policies, the next 4 years are unlikely to be easy for the transgender community, but progress rarely is. Thank you for joining me on Not Alone. Stay tuned for more empowering stories and subscribe for more insights, because no one should walk the journey alone.